Norsemen, according to Greco-Romans, since we're all looking forward to that.
Hi everybody, hope you're fine, you eat well, okay. And yes, I think most of you will guess what a specialist of Islam has the hell to do with the Norseman origin in Greco-Roman. So that explanation is very simple, because I started a research since many years about the relationship between the Muslims and Norman people, and from this I figured out that between Muslims and Normans there was a very good relationship. They understand each other very well. Let me understand. I'm very curious. I want to find why. What is the reason of this? And you start from research to another research, and you know where you start, you don't know where you're going to finish. A researcher just like a drug addicted. You will never stop to, and you don't know. And so in researching this matter, I just find out some interesting clues about the Norseman origins. And when I saw this call of paper, and I sent I said, okay, I got something about Norseman origins. I sent this, and I was very made back very soon by Gaius, because he told me, oh wow, I had a PhD in Viking sagas, so that's why I'm here, and I thank you everybody, and thank you all, I thank Gaius, Attilio, everybody. And, okay, so let's start. So history begins where archaeology leaves off, separating these two fields of human knowledge. However, is a wide borderland, the land of sagas and folklore. Okay, here the historian never feels unsafe ground and is inclined to reject anything that is not palpable, while the archaeologist is all too prone to let the sagas get the better of his imagination and wanders off into fantastic speculation. And yet, it is just in this borderland, while prudently dealing with sagas and folklore, chronicles and annals, that archaeology must be linked up with historical research. Only by doing this it is possible to carry the history of a nation or of a royal house back to its remotest origin. The period of the sagas in Scandinavia is shrouded in mystery. Here we can only grope our way along by comparing the Edda poetry, Beowulf, Landfjordal, the Icelandic sagas as Norway with the Danish, Icelandic, Saxon, French, and German chronicles, and with the works of French and German historians of the time. All these sources, however, must be treated with the utmost caution. They are generally a mixture of fact and fantasy, and the borderline between the two is hard to distinguish. But at the same time, we must be grateful for all the facts of real value they do give us. To be critical of these sources to the point of completely refusing to acknowledge the value of historical research would be a great mistake. Such a hypocritical attitude will not only display a questionable sense of judgment, but also disclose the fact that the critic himself is uncritical of his own criticism. So, it is not difficult to criticize, but to reconstruct, to infuse life into the little one knows of those ancient days, when memorials were carved in stone and history handed down by word of mouth from father to son. It's quite another matter. To do this, one has to sift carefully to the written material, separating the wheat from the chaff. When deducing the truth from the sagas and from the incomplete and often obscure chronicles of the monks, one must treat warily, and it is by no means an easy task to reassemble the true and probable facts so that they form a complete picture of the historical development. If then to all this we add both classical and late ancient Greco-Roman sources, then the challenge becomes even more interesting. Clearly, here we will only give a task. This is a premise, a methodological premise, but here we will only give a taste of a research that began and continues for several years in a completely incidental way among other things. So let us stop chatting and let us get straight to the heart of the matter. Okay. Yes. And the starting point of this research was the pedigrees of the Anglo-Saxon kings who ruled Britain until the Norman invasion under William the Conqueror, especially that of the kings of Mercia. Comparing them to each other, we realize that some names were recurring. You see, these are the other pedigrees of other Saxon kingdoms, Lindisfarne, Northumbria, East Anglia, West Saxon, and Kent. And we realize that some names were recurring, although they changed slightly in diction. As if that were not enough, these names also appear in the sagas mentioned below. The first of these series of names recurring, okay, is Wergigerod, okay, or Werwolgerod. Sometimes it's named Werwolgerod. Sometimes Wergigerod. It is sometimes referred as Rose der Wergigerod. Okay? Subsequently, given the importance of these rulers, we wanted to see if they were mentioned in the Latin Chronicles. At this point, we ran into one of the problems that we had to get used to during our research. Namely, that many historical figures were called by different names in different languages. Especially, Latin chronicles Latinized any non-Latin names as they felt best, and often different scribes Latinized the names differently. Our attention was therefore captured by some testimonies contained in the Passion of Saint Sabas. Okay. And Passion of Saint Sabbath the God, Vita Sancti Sabbath, and in the orations of Themistis. Okay? Both sources tell us that Athanaric's father bore the name of Rotesteus or Rotestes. Apart from the assonance with the rose, we were further struck by the fact that these names constitute, as I figure out in many Latin dictionary, a late antique variant of Roteus, which means Trojans. To which we went to investigate the figure of Athanaric. Okay. Now, here the genealogies from which we start from. Let me back here. Okay. They give us. There's a first time they give us a name, and first time is discordant. This name in the Mercia pedigree is a Whitlag. Whitlag, the relation include Whitlag, Whitlake, Whitlack, Whitlack, Whitlake, Whitligo. That is the various pedigrees. It therefore seems that this road was not viable, but we immediately realized that in the Latin and Greek chronicles, Athanaric, okay, was often referred to as George. In the 4th century, the Visigothic political system had one peculiarity: the office of a George, Iudex in Latin, Dicastes in Greek once. But we don't know the Gothic word for the office, but we do know it had a precedence over the authority of the main chieftains and meant a leader of the confederated Gothic tribes, where their character known as Whitlag is described in Anglo-Saxon sources in much the same way. Not only that, we have said that the Gothic word with which this office was indicated is not known. It just so happens that Whitlag is Anglo-Saxon for Odin's law, indicating that he was the embodiment of that law. Coincidence? The only God knows. The similarities are even closer with the next name in our series, namely is Wermund. Okay, this is another. Yeah, this is okay. Yes, Wermund. This is another source about from Zosimus that describe Atanarikos as the king of all. He say of all Scythians. This is another well-known controversial theory. They say that the Gothic, they were Scythians, not everybody, and I think the same. But we will talk about it later. This is Faramond, this is Wermund. And this name, Wermund, spelled also Faramond, Warmund, Vermund, and we could go on, and we did, but let us stop at this character. We find the king with this name in several Latin sources and is cited by Frankish historians as their first king. Although not all chronicles agree with this statement. However, everyone agrees that he had Trojan origins. And it is here that I want to focus your attention given the theme of our symposium. All these genealogies, including that of Danish kings contained in the Land from Gretel, trace their origin to the deified character of Woden. Okay? That is here. This is from but this is from Anglo-Saxon chronicle, by the way. And Woden, which is Odin. Rarely such genealogies start directly with the Wermund, like the one of the Mercian kings. And this last name could even be another, according for me, I think, could even be another variant of Woden, because Wermund is the Anglo-Saxon for Odin god. Okay, Wermund, okay, Woden, Georg is God. So Odin god. So does this mean that according to these genealogies, Woden is of Trojan origin? Do we have any other confirmation of this? Okay, yes. Well, yes, because in Kongasagor, Snorre has written the story of Woden. This story has been told from father to son, generation after generation, and by landmen and scouts into the kings. It is impossible now to determine the exact element of truth this Douglas relation, but to dismiss it as a myth would certainly be a mistake. Even if it only contains a core of truth, it is valuable as a clue when looking for the origin of the early Nordic and Saxon kings. In this connection, it may be mentioned that the Swedish state has gathered this tradition. The preface of Svea Rikes Lag, which is the laws of Sweden, clearly states that the first royal house of Sweden came into the kingdom from Asia. Snorre tells us that Woden and his hosts came from a stronghold called Asgard, situated east of Tanakhvsil, the river Don. Woden was chief of the Asal and leader of the worship and sacrifice. He owned the land domains in Turkey. It should be noted that all pedigrees of Woden trace back to the kings of Troy. Woden is said to have fled before the Romans and wandered wide across Europe. As we have seen, the Frankish historian were unanimously of the opinion that they their own royal house, the Merovingi, were descended from Danish kings and through them from the kings of Troy. Snorre mentioned a word and large domains in Turkey called Tirkland. Okay, these are Tacitus had already called attention to some sepulchral mounds and monuments with Greek inscription at Augsburg. This gave rise to the idea that the town of Augsburg was the very place that Snorre called Asgard, that is the interrogative point. A more natural explanation seems to be that this monument was raised in commemoration of Asgard in Russia by some Gothic tribes who had been in contact with Greek civilization in Thrace. Another possible solution is that Tacitus took runic letters for the Greek alphabet, to which they bear a certain resemblance. In fact, the classical authors were generally convinced that the gods came from Thrace. As early as 513 BC, when the Persian king Darius launched his great campaign against the Scythians, the Thracians, a people noted for valor and culture, were called the Getae. Greek and the Roman writers later refer to the same people as gods. The Getae, Anglo-Saxon Geatas or Eatas, were the ancestors of the Jews. In his book of Caracalla, Spartiano says the claim that Goti and Getae were the same people. His opinion is also expressed by Procopius, and Orosius writes about AD 400, Getae illi qui nunc Goti. The Romans also refer to the duchy as gods. So, okay, so let's jump to the conclusion. This is the reference. Conclusion. Okay. So we can state, okay, apart of that, just let me let me show you another thing that about Warden the Trojan. This is something. Okay, as you can see here, this is a stone, the rose stone. It was discovered in 1897. Okay, it was published on the Journal of Swedish Antiquities Research. 1949 was studied. This is the inscription. Okay, this is Udul RHN. Okay, that is let me take. Okay, that is Yud means Odin. You can see a falcon on top of the horse, a crow. Okay, which is a sacred animal for Odin. Eagle possibly is a abbreviation of Yaga, means to hunt or to drive away. R generally is considered to be an abbreviation of Rus, and Rus in the Gotland dialect means horse too. And so this story is another clue of the fact that Warden was called Rose too. So Rose, so who knows? They kept the memory that Warden is Troy. It's coming from Troy, possible. But what I want to conclude now is okay. Let me take it off. So okay. No. Okay. In the classic time, in ancient time, we had the stress about gods coming from Asia. And now, since like during the classic period, this vessel was a little bit forgotten, then went back again in late antiquity. Why? Why? Because we had the invasion of the homes of Attila. And I think that the German tribes, in order to find asylum with the Romans, started to bring this story of the Trojan origins, just to tell the Romans, look, we are brothers, you need to help us, not from Attila, no, because, yes, the Germans, they were known to be very violent, and the Huns, they were demons confront to the Germans. So, we can say with some certainty that what the Greco-Roman sources and the Norse sagas contributed indicated the mythical origins of the gods in Asia, and in this case in the city of Troy. We have reason to believe that the emergence of such mythical origins of the gods in late antiquity could have been a valid justification in the eyes of the Romans for wearing alliances and at the same time by the Gothic tribes to seek asylum among the Romans following the invasion of Attila. It is interesting to know that in this regard that in the Battle of the Catalonian Fields, 451, when the Roman general Aetius defeated the Huns under Attila, the Visigoths and the Franks, and both of them claim origin from Troy, fought on the side of the Romans. This is just suggestion that it's about the political use of mythology, which is a vice that we never forget even in actual time. You know, we still use it. You can see now in the war between Russia and Ukraine, they say, no, we are the Rus of Kiev. No, you are the Rus of Kiev. Rus of Kiev, Moscow doesn't mean any so. They fight. And one of the root of their war is about the Rus of Kiev. And we are coming back to if it's true, maybe if we find other archaeological evidence that this is true, that the Rus means Troyans, this give a link not to all our people, and all of us we bear the same tradition, no? The same tradition but who knows, that is okay. This is my, of course, I knew before I was at only 15 minutes talk, so I just condensate what I thought is very important. But there are other things, other sources I didn't mention here, like Saxo Grammaticus and William of Jumiers and others. But later, if we publish some articles, you will read everything. I hope so. These are the sources, by the way, where to trace references, where to start about the origin of the Norsemen, Peter's, Giordane, Caesar, Julius Caesar, the Ammianus Marcellinus, and others. And these are the late antique and the medieval sources. So I really had the time to read all this paper, and I'm still reading, by the way. Thank you for having listened to me. And
thank you very much. That got us to a good start.
And we're now going to turn from God to Geta. Mr. Alex Baker is by Dan Tudor Ionesco, and he's a researcher at the chair at the Ade Institute of Oriental Studies in Bucharest. And so his talk is going to be on Cassiodorus and Jordanes, the last sources of Jordanes in Geta.
Okay, let me close everything. What is it?
Ti metto il PowerPoint o è il
Ok.
testo? C'è il testo.
You can have the word
Ok.
on the screen.
Yeah.
Because there is a word. You can have the
Vuoi
word.
che te lo metto?
Sì, sì,
Ok.
sì, prego. Per vedere tutti.